All right. Hello, everyone who is joining us for Rolling Out Presents Sisters with Superpowers. You are in for a treat today. You are in for a conversation with two women who are leaders in their fields. And guess what? They are introverts. Hey, we are celebrating and uplifting those of us who identify, and yes, I myself identify as an introvert, and the powers that we hold to lead teams, to get ish done, and to just be strategic. So, I would like to start first introducing myself. My name is Christina Steed. I'm a communications expert, an adjunct professor, and fellow. And I am loving the conversation right now that we're having in the zeitgeist about introversion. And I have with me two women who are leading in their fields, and we're going to talk about it. We're just going to have a real good conversation about what it means to be an introvert. And so I would like to kick it over to Jeri Bingham to introduce herself and tell our audience a little bit about who you are, Jeri, and what you do.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am Jeri. I am um, an introvert advocate, introvert strategist. I'm on a mission to educate and empower, to inform the world about the powers of introverts, specifically Black female introverts. Outside of that, I work in marketing communications at a college outside of Chicago, Illinois, and I am an adjunct lecturer at a university in Chicago. And I also host a podcast called Hush Loudly, where we talk about all things introverted. That is an audio podcast as well as a televised podcast on CAN TV, which is a local station. And I am the founder of Black Introvert Week, which is February 8th through 15th, where these ladies have always helped me celebrate and tell the story and control the narrative about being an introvert.
Thank you, Jeri. And now, Miss Jones, Miss Sylvia, please.
I am Sylvia Jones. I am a television writer and producer. I have worked on shows including Power Book for Force, Showtime's The Shy, Ava DuVernay's Cherish Today. I wrote the Clark Sisters movie, Clark Sisters First Ladies of Gospel. And I'm also a former television news producer. I spent the vast majority of my career as a working journalist. And through all of that, I've been an introvert. Was then, still am. And I'm glad somebody is saying it loud. I'm an introvert and I'm proud.
Right. Say it loud. I'm introverted and I'm proud. So, what I love about our backgrounds is the thread that ties it is this communications angle, right? We're writers, we're communicators, and that's something that people don't think about introverts doing. And so, Jeri, I would love for you to kind of talk a little bit about your research, the work that you've done to really just kind of shed a light and bust these myths around what introversion is.
Well, first, let me hit everybody with, if they didn't know this, Oprah Winfrey is an introvert. She came out and said it a few years ago. It did not surprise me at all. There are lots of celebrities. According to the research, 57% of the world is introverted. That was based on a global sample done in 2020 by Myers-Briggs. And I think people would be shocked because their perception of an introvert is quiet, or some of us may be quiet, but it's more shy, antisocial, doesn't like people, a hermit, doesn't leave the house. And so people are shocked to hear that there are people like us, like Oprah, Viola Davis, Stacey Abrams, who are out there living, working, managing, running their organizations. Hopefully, will be the governor of Georgia one day. There are all these people, Viola Davis, who, and Shonda Rhimes, another one. And I think what we all have is some element of creativity. We all have some element of communications. And I think all of that reverts to our listening skills and our observation. And we're highly analytical and we're adaptive. All of those come into place, all of those attributes, and help us make decisions and help us lead. We're intuitive. We are always thinking. And so I think that this shapes how we make decisions and how we move. But I'm enjoying talking about this because, again, it's an education. The stereotypes and stigmas have been around for years where we're compared to negatively extroverts. And we live in an extrovert rewarding world. But I think it shows something about us how we do so well in this world that favors and celebrates extroversion. Look at us and look at all the rest of the introverts that are out there
Right.
doing things.
Yes, thank you, Jeri. And if you think about your career, Sylvia, you've been able to show run, be on these shows, do these popular things that people know about. People know, have seen the Clark sisters, know about the Shy. You've been in news. Can you talk a bit about your journey to either accepting or embracing or even understanding yourself as an introvert? Because the more I do these panels and Jeri does this leadership in this space, people are like, oh my God, that's me. And no one has validated that for me before. So I would love, to kind of hear about your journey.
It's interesting that you bring out specifically. I mean, I tell the story of my, transition from journalism to entertainment all the time, which I don't know that that's the question that you're asking me, but the question that I'm hearing is about my journey to discovering introversion through my career. That has been that's taken a while. That is not something that I just immediately understood, because as you said, it's not rewarded, and I have been slapped for it. I have been penalized for it, and I didn't accept it for a long time. I thought that because of my personality, I had to stay in the background. That's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be in a supporting role. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing for me. I mean, I thrived. I enjoyed it. I am always a person who enjoys the work of what I'm doing more so than the spotlight of it. And I didn't necessarily see myself as a leader. I saw myself as a supporter, as a champion of others, mainly because I didn't feel like I was supposed to be that one that was out there. And I had to come to a point of understanding that what other people saw didn't necessarily define me. Mm-hmm. And once I accepted that, it was easier for other people to accept that. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that Jeri, I appreciate what you said about we are in an extrovert rewarding world. And that is the truth. And I think that's part of what I'm saying is what explains the Oprahs and the Violas and the Shondas and so forth, because I think introversion is more about what feels natural to you. And it does not necessarily feel natural to me to be out in front and telling you do this. It's not necessarily natural, but for what it is that I want to do, for what my personal goals are, it's required. So I have to come out and do certain things. Then as soon as I'm done, I go revert home by myself and curl up in a ball and like decompress, like, oh my God, I had some people today, so I get all of that. And I hope that answered the question.
No, it does. I had to people today. So it's not that what you're saying is we understand who we are. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, we're not feeling that we need to perform even after we've done the work. Like, you show up in the work and you do the work and you get it done. But when you're done, it's like, okay, it's okay to be at home. And I think social media has helped to fuel this conversation, because you see more people talking about hashtag soft life and, talking about being introverted and it's acceptable. So I would love young people who want to be leaders and want to follow in your footsteps to get to that sooner. Because for me, it took late 30s to be like, this is okay. Like, it's okay. Having dated people who were extroverted and didn't want to tolerate me being an introvert, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't get along with people's family. They thought, she's bougie, she's this, she's that. Meanwhile, I just want to read a book. I just want to be at home. I'm not trying to, be at the sporting event. So Jeri, coming on the heels of that, there are a lot of strengths and powers that introverts have. Can you talk a bit about what those are kind of consistently as they show up either in the workplace or in people's personal lives?
I will, but I also want to just jump on what Sylvia said behind the scenes and in supporting roles. You were leading in that function, whether it manifested or demonstrated leadership in the way that the world thinks leadership should be demonstrated, you were, because I always had that too, where people would come and ask me, can you plan this? Can you do this? And I'd wonder, why me? I'm the quieter person in the room. Why? But I think that our strengths come out in the things that we do, even as supporting roles. But that is one of the things. So you talked about some of our attributes. I think one of the biggest thing that I always talk about is listening and observation. We hear things and see things that other people don't because they're busy talking. And we are laying back in the cut listening, and we're watching body language and social cues, and we're figuring out what's really happening in this room. In addition to that, have you all always been told how calm you are? I've been commended, especially in the workplace when everyone is losing it and doesn't know what to do. Everyone looks to me because I'm the calmest voice in the room. I'm able to think, I'm able to analyze. And then that's another place where your leadership just comes up, and people look to you to save the day because you're thinking about it. So that analysis, that big thinking, that listening, that observation, we're adaptive because we've had to be. We live in a world that celebrates and rewards extroversion. So how do we fit in? How do we find our place? How do we get our raises and promotions and bonuses? And how do we do this? We adapt, and then we learn to excel in our own way. We've talked about how, if you're not one in a conference room who will stand up and talk in front of 50 people about your idea or your strategies, you hit whoever is important, whoever needs to see this with an email. You hit them in a one-on-one and blow their minds with all that you've thought about and all that you've put together that will help the organization reach its goals. And so that's important as we continue this conversation about finding your space, finding the way for you to still be yourself, show up, show out, but do it in a way that's comfortable for you, which could be behind the scenes or could be center stage.
May I just jump on one
Please.
thing that you said? It's about that calming effect. And I found that it was a double-edged sword for me while I worked in news. It's been less so since I've moved into entertainment, but I definitely got that sense of comfort from people, that leadership, like, oh my goodness, you're so calm. And people would want to be around me because of that. But because news, especially when things are breaking and it's excitable and everything, people would mistake my calm for indifference. And that flew in my face more than once. I remember getting a performance review where my boss called me aloof, which was not a compliment. I've been out on scenes where, people have said, you don't care. You don't care and I'm like, no, I'm not a hairs on fire type of person. When calamity strikes, I am not the one who, blows up. I'm methodical. I'm logistical. I'm thinking of a solution. And the good thing is, it always would end up turning around and people would see, oh my goodness, after the fact, oh, your steady head made a difference. And honestly, it has spilled into my personal life, from dating, from, things like that, where people expect me to be excitable. And when I'm more moderate and more thoughtful and calm and quiet, when they're expecting me to they assume that I don't care. And that's the furthest thing from, my passion just doesn't show up that way. And now I have a word for it. I know that it's introversion, whereas 20 years ago, I unfortunately accepted a lot of other people's labels. And I'm glad of what you said, Christina, about now the 25-year-old, the 30-year-old, has a word, has a movement.
Right.
Thank you, Jeri.
Yes.
To understand and kind of explain, this is what this is. It's not a deficiency. Right. It's my way of excellence.
Yes. Jeri, did you have something before I
I was going to say, Sylvia, Christina and I, we also have had conversations about that same thing where it has worked against us, but we find our way. And it's not just television news where, you may have been told, oh, she's aloof, she doesn't care, she's so nonchalant, she's all of these things. And it's because of the way they interpret our demeanor. But also, on the other hand, we're commended for that demeanor. So we live in a really complicated space, and we still rise to the top. And Christina has been in public relations, media relations. So that same high energy, we've all had to experience that. And I bet many introverts have, no matter what the field.
Yeah, I mean, to hook on that point, just being the inverse of your former industry, Sylvia, when I would media pitch, I remember pitching a local business publication, and the reporter saying, "You're like the calmest PR person I've ever talked to." And I'm like, because for me, the PR is not ER. Like, we're going to either get this story or we're not. We're either going to manage through this crisis or we're not. Like, that wasn't something I wanted to take in that way. And so I did then become the person who was methodical. But to that point, yes, my reviews would be, you don't speak up enough. I've said this on every Jeri panel. I had a white female boss tell me I needed to be more of a witch with a B, because that's what they expected. I'm the only Black woman in the room, and I was supposed to be something that they saw on television, and it was not to be for me. And I had to leave that organization to go somewhere else and have direct reports understand my leadership style and be able to manage through that. So I appreciate all of these stories.
And that's what we're continuing this conversation about the stereotypes. And that's something that we as Black women experience, because I believe those stereotypes of what they believe the Black woman should be, whether they got it from whatever media they got it from, that comes into play in the workplace when you step in and they expect you to be that person. And when you're not living your life out loud, and you're not overly demonstrative, and you're not the drill sergeant or the overly gregarious Black woman that they're used to seeing on TV, and you're more modest and moderate and calm and quiet, they're uncomfortable with that. And so that's why they're looking at you more under the microscope. Well, like, who is this? This isn't what we expected when we hired this amazing, brilliant Black woman. We are exactly that brilliant and Black woman, but we don't demonstrate and we don't perform in the way that they expect us to. And it's all about making them comfortable, which is unfortunate, but that is a society that we live in. And I'm sorry I went off.
No, that's great, because my question kind of on that note is, there are women in our audience who are going to hear some of this for the first time, right? And they're going to have this enlightenment moment, which so many have had on your panels, Jeri, where it's like, okay, I'm in my work, I'm in my role, and I've been told I don't speak up enough, or I've been told I don't go to the happy hours or unhappy hours, what I've heard from previous people talk about. So what are some strategies or some recommendations that they can come away with, and stepping into this being their superpower? How can they move forward in their journey?
I think that another strength that we have, and please let me know if you have this too, I think we're extremely curious. And I think that also comes with that analytical mind and our methodical minds. But the way to use that as an asset in the boardroom or in the office space is, if you want your voice to be heard, ask questions. Lead with the question that makes people think. And that can be extremely valuable, because that one question can turn into all kinds of conversations and decision making about goals or the mission or whatever you're working on. So lead there if you are uncomfortable speaking. That will help you, I feel like, become more comfortable speaking, because people will come back with questions, and then I feel like you've made a space for yourself if you were uncomfortable in that way. Also for social events, which we've talked about before, conferences and activities where you're expected to show up. Okay, you do have to show up for some things. It's part of the game, it's part of the role. And so when you do, make it comfortable for you, like go early. Go early. You know, it's like when you, if there's a cocktail reception from 5 to 7, if you get there at 6:30, it's like the community has formed, bonds have formed, the conversations have started and moved on. So it's harder for you to walk and break into a group of 5 and introduce yourself and start talking. But if you go early, find that other person who's there early. You may talk to that one person all night, you know, and then other people will come and join your group. And so it's just easier for introverts who may not love just going out and introducing themselves and starting conversations with strangers. So that is a tip that I give in that sense. And just think about things like that. What makes it more comfortable for you? Because there are some things you have to do, especially in leadership positions.
Yeah. And Sylvia, given you are in now the entertainment space, you've made this transition from news to entertainment. You have a great catalog of work behind you, but I assume you still need to network. You still need to kind of sell, not sell yourself, but sell your creativity. Can you talk a bit about how you either are in community with other, if there are, have you identified community of other introverted folks who do your work, and how that helps to, help create a community for you?
It's really interesting that you asked that, because by nature, most writers are introverts. Call us nerds, call us, whatever it is you want, but it's like there's a certain type of person who decides that they want to sit in front of their computer by themselves and write all day. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's easier to find company in this area, because even though the work is outward facing, so much of what we do is is insular. So yes, there is a community there, but what's a huge part of this industry is pitching and selling and making sure that people know who you are and what you're thinking in order for you to get the job where you can write all day and that kind of thing. And that can be really daunting. And I have heard stories from executives who I'll go in, and I've kind of honed my skill in how to tell my story, how to basically close the deal, where there's a lot of writers in particular struggle with that because they have the writing part, they don't have the outward facing part. And so one of the things that I do a retreat every year where I teach writers about writing and about the business of it. And one of the things I talk about is crafting your story. Some of that comes from practice ahead of time, already having in your head what points you're going to make, what things you want to say, because you say selling yourself versus selling your creativity. Unfortunately, it's a package deal in a lot of cases. People may want your creativity, but they're really saying, do I want to work with Sylvia? Do I want to have to be bothered with her for months on it? You know what I mean? So I'm, as much as I'm selling my idea, I'm also selling myself. And so a lot of us as writers, we're used to handing you the page and saying, here's what it is, and not knowing how to say, and by the way, I'm this and I'm that, and here's why you want to be in business with me. And so one of the things that I teach is how to hone your story, how to craft the story of you, so that when you are at that cocktail function that you don't want to be at to begin with, and you have to break in, or heaven forbid, somebody walks up to you and says, oh, so tell me about yourself. We all hate that question, right? But part of taking the anxiety out of that is already having a concise, well thought answer for that, and then a question to flip the conversation off of you.
Right. Yeah, Jeri, anything to add there?
No, I'm in agreement with everything she said. And when she talked about at the end, flipping the conversation out off of you, I'll say I do that often with questions. People like to talk about themselves. So when you're around or when you're with an extrovert, usually it's obvious who's more extroverted. Just ask them about themselves, and that turns into a conversation. You insert yourself, but they do all the talking, and that
Mhm.
works as well.
I
And
love
most time they don't even notice.
right. Look, a little trick, little trickery right there. I love that. I love the part about the selling of yourself, which is true. I think about my own career around new business and how I stepped into a new business development role when everybody was like, but she's quiet. Why would she be doing new business? You have to be out. You have to people, as you said,
Mhm.
Sylvia.
Mhm.
But I peopled in my own way, right? I like Jeri
Mhm.
said, it was one-on-one conversations. It's leveraging LinkedIn and was able to turn, develop and bring in millions of dollars in new business as the quiet person, as the person that no one suspected of doing that. So I appreciate
Mhm.
you giving that different way of looking at how you sell yourself. In terms of, both of you are listed as game changers, introverts to watch for 2023. That is presented by Hush Loudly. Yes. What do you think it means to even like share lists like that, Jeri, to kind of amplify what it means to be an introvert? You have diverse people on that list from different industries. It's global in scope because this is not just a US phenomenon. This is a conversation that's happening across the pond in England and Germany and Europe and Africa. So can you talk about kind of that movement?
I think it's just what you said, Christina. It's a collective, it's a collaboration, it's highlighting, it's bringing attention to, it's featuring all of these individuals who are at the top of their game and who continue to do amazing things every day.
Mhm.
And so I had the idea like, I know all of these amazing people who've been on my podcast or who've been on the panels. Let's get them all together and just celebrate us for the work that we do in the way that we do it as introverts. All of us have embraced our introversion, because it took us a while to get here. Sylvia, it's not just you. It took me till my 30s too. And that may have to do with our age and maturity and knowing ourselves and valuing ourselves more. But it took us a while to get here. And so I just thought, what a great way to amplify what each of us is doing. And we're attorneys, we're empowerment coaches. I mean, we're graphic designers on this list of 40 people. It's, from all over the place, including Barbados and almost every large city in the United States. And as you said, across the pond, is just, I don't know. I just thought, let me pull this community together and let's have some synergy here and just talk about what we're doing. And I think people just need to see us there. You know how I mentioned Oprah and these people are introverts, and they've said it once or twice, but not to the degree it needs to be, in my opinion, because there's so many younger versions of ourselves who need to hear this and need to see us. And so they can look at us like, okay, I can write. Sylvia Jones wrote the Clark sisters and all of that. So, I just felt like this was just the appropriate time and the way to do it. And I'm proud that both of you accepted the invitation and are on the Game Changers list.
Mhm.
Can
Yeah,
I add to that?
please.
I think, first of all, I'm so honored that I was included on the list. Um, but also, I think of my younger self and all of the many versions of me that are out there and who are watching things like that. It's validating, when you can see other people who have gone where you strive to be, or even, for us to see your peers and to know it's not just you. Just even in this conversation and saying the kinds of things that I would hear in reviews, or to have you two not in agreement. Yes, I heard those same things too. It is so incredibly validating to know, no, I'm not the other. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine,
Yes.
And so, at this point in my career, I'm fine. Don't cry for me. You know what I mean? But I think of those people who are still on the journey of discovery. And I think about if 20 years ago, someone had told me, You know, I mean, I remember a boss telling me, I went to her vying for more better assignments, higher assignments, and I was doing the work, and I was doing the work well, and she told me, you need to raise your profile, create some buzz about yourself so that other people will come to me and say they want to work with you.
Wow.
That was what I was told. Now my reaction probably would have been very different than it was 20 years ago, but somewhere there's somebody being told that, you know, and that you don't feel like you should have to teach people how to treat you, but you have to teach people how to treat you. You really
Yes.
do. And that was a teachable moment that, had I had someone mentoring me saying, here's how you handle this, or it's okay to be who you are,
Right.
I think it would have at least made me feel a little better. So I just wanted to say that for those people out there who are not as far along and on their journey, that it's validating to see that you aren't alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up our conversation, this was wonderful, by the way, ladies. This is not just for us introverts, although yes, we are in community with each other, but this is also to what Sylvia just said, for extroverted people to understand how to be allied with folks who are introverted, because you may have an extroverted boss and they need to be exposed to what are the strengths of my introverted teammates, so that I am not using a lens that is preferring having a preference for someone who's extroverted, right? So we are bringing all voices to the table in the diverse ways that we learn, that we grow, that we promote. So Jeri, I just want to kind of, if you have any kind of final words on that piece.
I just want to add to that. Yeah, it's like for leadership or whoever is running the place who are focusing on extroverts, that's impacting your bottom line. If you're only focusing on the people who speak the loudest and have the loudest voices, what about the other half, since we know half the world is introverted? You're sleeping on that group. If you gave them what they needed, the resources, the space, the time, even the design of the office or whatever they need, that will impact your bottom line, because you'll get the most from everyone. Give everyone the opportunity to thrive. And that's what we need to also be shouting to companies and organizations and institutions about, acknowledging that you have introverts and understanding introverts and giving them what they need to succeed.
Yes. Well, on that note, Jeri and Sylvia, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation about the superpower that introverts have on this Sisters with Superpowers conference. Thank you. And everyone, have a great rest of the conference. Please enjoy all the rest of the panels and own your dopeness as an introvert. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.